What's going on, everyone? I'm Munchables, this is Tibbers, and you're watching the LPL recap. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the LPL recap. Munchables here, as always. Thank you very much, Tibbers, for the cheeky little intro there. We've got a very special episode of the recap coming at you as the regular season has ended now. We're going to have 3 rewinds of some of the most important games when it comes to that seeding for playoffs, but also we're going to have a bit of a pre-cap of what is to come in playoffs. And one thing I know you're all very excited for is how V5 can make it to Worlds. Before we do jump into that, though, let's look at the final standings and the top 8 teams in the LPL. As you can see, it was JDG and Top Esports that managed to eke it out at the end of the day, and FPX just barely squeaking through in that bottom place at the end of things, but also Suning managing to snag themselves that 4th seed. With all of that said, though, let's get into the rewind. Let's take a look back at Suning versus Vichy Gaming, because this was a crucial series when it came to seeding going into playoffs. Suning needed this win to make sure that they could guarantee themselves 4th place, and it also meant that V5 were moved down to 5th place if Suning could keep on winning. But when it came down to the actual series itself, a lot of these games came down to scaling. Vichy Gaming managed to win in game number 1, but look at the composition from Suning. They had a GP, they had a Cappin. It was all about the late game. And then game number 3, everything fell apart for Vichy. As you can see on your screen, iBoy getting red buff instead of contesting the Baron when the gold was in Vichy Gaming's favor. It meant Suning could grab this Baron completely uncontested. And then again, Maestro and iBoy trying to start a fight on Sword Art, but look where Lien is on the minimap right now. Kiana nowhere to be found. Vichy Gaming out of position. And Suning finding these miracle picks in the late game. It meant that they could get themselves this win. It meant that they could keep their momentum rolling, and it meant that they could keep that 4th seed. They did still have 1 series to go after that one, but they managed to get the late game team fights, and that is a big learning point for Suning. Top Esports versus WE was an absolutely crucial series this week. Top Esports needed it to net themselves 1st seed. WE needed it to try and grab themselves 6th seed moving on into the playoff bracket. This play in game number 1 was absolutely sick from Jackie Love and Yuyanja, showing us why this Caitlyn Lux duo is so potent. Shout out to Casa as well, winning out the 50-50 smite to get that Baron. That netted Top Esports game number 1. WE answered in game number 2. And we got to see Teachamar on this Orianna pick. It's a new pick for him. He looked great across the series, but he didn't look as good as Knight. This Silas managed to find 2v1s, managing to snowball so heavily in game number 3. And you know what? This was actually a really good series from WE. Being able to take Top Esports to 3 games was actually quite impressive from them. It wasn't quite enough, though, to win the series, because Knight, once again, doing so much during these team fights. But then, the longer these team fights went on, the more it seemed to be going in Top Esports' favor. The mechanical difference was there. When it came to the shot calling as well, it did feel like Top Esports had an edge. So the conclusions coming out of this one was obviously in terms of seeding. W went down to 7th. It was Top Esports netting themselves the 1st seed over JDG. But most importantly, in my mind, it's a really, really good look for WE that they're able to match Top Esports at all in these team fights, but also Top Esports, when it came to late game decision making and the coordination in those fights, are still looking like that top team. Suning versus FPX. What a way to round out our summer split. It was the final game, and it was a crucial one for both Suning and for V5 that were watching, biting their nails. If Suning could win this one, they grabbed themselves the 4th seed. And in game number 1, the team fighting just looked beautiful, able to get themselves a Baron buff. And Suning, I mean, this is one thing that we criticized Suning for towards the start of the split, was the late game team fighting. But FPX, they weren't done just yet. Even without LWX on the roster, who was ill at the time, we saw Doombeat on the Cassiopeia in the bottom lane. Khan was running rampant on the Renekton. And we even got CTN bringing out this Lilia and looking fantastic on it. These long, drawn-out teamfights was exactly what FPX wanted in game number 2. But Suning came back swinging. They got the Renekton this time. Bin looked amazing, but look at SOFM during this clip. This kick was just magnificent. Tian goes golden. In goes SOFM onto Doomby. Kicks all three of them. And it means Bin can just roll through the squad. Suning with the late game team fighting once again. I guess it wasn't even late game team fighting, just team fighting in general. But Suning look amazing and importantly net themselves that 4th seed spot. They get a bye all the way into quarterfinals. And it meant that the V5 get knocked back to the first round of playoffs. Well, since the regular season is over, that means it's time for playoffs. And in this very special episode of the recap, we're going to do what I'm calling a pre-cap. We're going to look at what's coming your way for playoffs. So let's bring up the bracket and have a glance over how things are looking, because we're going to be starting things off with V5 against FPX and LGD against WE in our first round. And I want to focus in on V5 specifically because I know a lot of you guys at home are very excited for V5 as a team. I know a lot of you are really wanting this team to make it to Worlds. So let's look at the championship points and figure out how V5 makes it to the World Championship. So let's just assume that we can remove JDG and Top Esports in the top 2 spots. Since they're the first 2 seeds from the regular split, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they're going to make it through on top championship points and the summer winner. So then we have Invictus Gaming and FunPlus Phoenix. They already have enough championship points that they are guaranteed to make it to regional finals. So 4 of our teams now decided. 2 of them to regional finals, 2 of them already to the World Championship, which means there are 2 spots remaining for the regional finals. And it's either Suning, WE, Victory 5, or LGD to take those spots. Now you can see EDG have 10 points on the board, but because it's spring points, they cannot tie with anyone that gets 10 points in summer. The summer points take precedence, so EDG are out of the running. Now WE having 10 points is very important because if WE can make it to that second round of playoffs, they'll make it to 20 points and they should be able to just about eke their way in. But Victory 5, they're really praying that LGD will beat WE in that first round, because if LGD ties with Victory 5 for points, Victory 5 will go through the tiebreaker is seeding from the regular season. So if Victory 5 can get 5th place and it's LGD in 6th place, that's all V5 would need to make it to the regional final and make it to Worlds. Now, obviously, that still requires them to beat FPX, and there are easier ways for them to get to Worlds. They could just win Summit. That would get them there as well. But memes aside, that is the worst-case scenario for them to still make it to Worlds, and that's what is required of V5 if they do want to get onto that international stage. I know I want them to make it there because I want to see PP God against God Gilius, but only time will tell if that can become a reality. With all of that said and done, that's going to round out our recap today. I have been Munchables for you guys, and I hope I've been able to get you up to speed as we head towards playoffs. For the LPL, there's a lot riding on this for each of our teams as we head towards Worlds. Everything is on the next few days. Make sure you're tuning in. We can take one last look at the bracket. The first matchup is going to be FPX against V5, and then we'll go into LGD against WE. I cannot wait to get into these best of 5s and find out who the top teams truly are in the LPL and who the top teams will be in the favorites going into the World Championship. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched on Twitch, make sure to check out our YouTube channel. If you watched on YouTube, make sure to check out our Twitch. That's where we'll be streaming the playoffs. But with all that said and done, that's the LPL recap for you. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Munchables. This has been Tibbers. Say bye, Tibbers. Bye-bye, everyone. We'll catch you in the next one.